G'day guys, welcome back to another predictions video on the channel. Today I'll be going through the final round of the 2023 season. I'll be doing my round 24 predictions and tips, and also going through what occurred in round 23. So let's jump straight into it. And boy oh boy, am I starting to get inconsistent. I had a fantastic week last week, and this week wasn't so good. Started off in the worst possible way with Collingwood losing to Brisbane at Marvel. Obviously tipped Collingwood there, so there's an already incorrect tip. I obviously tipped Richmond, so I'll take that. I tipped Carlton. They just prevailed in that close finish with the Suns, so I'll definitely take that. I tipped the Giants, but I certainly didn't tip them by them that much. Yeah, one of the smashings of the season. And then I was kind of pissed off with this one because I tipped Geelong in a bit of a 50-50, and I wanted to change to St Kilda, but didn't really know, and in the end the Saints won pretty convincingly, so I was pretty upset with that one. And then, boy oh boy, the most controversial game I reckon I've ever witnessed, Adelaide versus Sydney. Boy oh boy, that was pretty bad. I obviously tipped Adelaide, so I got another incorrect one there, so I could have had a pretty good round if I ended up tipping if the Crows got up and I ended up tipping the Saints, but that didn't really occur, so oh well, you got to move on. And then on the Sunday, oh wow, the upset of the season occurred. No one would have got this one correct. I tipped the Dogs by like 80, and they lost by a goal. So yeah, I don't know what happened there. I tipped Melbourne. I wasn't very convinced, but I'll take it. And again with Port Adelaide, not very convincing, but I will take it. Not a very good round. 5 out of 9. It could have been worse. It could have been better. It's just a round where I'll just accept it and move on. To the final round, it'll be really, really big and really, really interesting. Obviously won't be as good, thanks to that goal umpire in the Adelaide versus Sydney game. Absolutely shocking. That by the AFL and by that goal umpire. Absolutely shattering stuff there. Go for my big calls. This is where it gets really bad. In the first game, I predicted there were 10 or more lead changes, and there was 1 or 2. So, yeah, that's pretty poor by me. I predicted Richmond to be leading for the entire match, and North were up for most of the first half. So, there's a pretty bad one to start it off again. And I'll take it, I guess. Gold Coast versus Carlton. I predicted both teams to score 80-plus points. They both did that, so I'll take that. But then they were all wrong from here. Predicted Toby Green to kick 5 or more goals. He was subbed out at half-time. The Giants didn't want to risk him, so that kind of pissed me off a bit. Jeremy Cameron and Max King combined for 7 or more goals was my next big call. And I think they combined for... I don't think Cameron even kicked any. King kicked 3 or 4. All I know is it wasn't the 7 goals. And... for Adelaide versus Sydney, I predicted the Crows to kick 5 first quarter goals, and I should have said last quarter because it technically would have happened if that goal umpire played the goal. And I'm going to keep on going on about that throughout this predictions video. It's pretty frustrating stuff what happened. And then my Bulldogs versus West Coast call. This was a really bad one, and I thought it'd be my easiest one to get. I predicted Bontempelli to kick 3 or more goals and 35 or more disposals, and he had around 30 and kicked a goal, I think. So, not great stuff there. And in Melbourne versus Hawthorn, I predicted Viney to get 125 or more fantasy points, and he got 105, I believe. I'll take it. It was pretty disappointing stuff. Yeah, I would have liked to get that one correct. And the final game of the round, I predicted Amos to kick 4 or more goals, and he didn't kick any. Had an absolute stinker, Jai Amos, so I got 1 out of correct. The Jai Amos performance sums up my round, really. But anyways, let's move on to round 24, and we'll get straight into it. We're probably going to be game of the round. We got both teams who are struggling at the moment in Essendon versus Collingwood. I'll be attending this one. Friday night footy doesn't get much better. Then the last Friday night game of the home and away season. It's going to be huge scenes. Essendon versus Collingwood. And yeah, both teams are in absolutely shocking form. An article was released today about Collingwood and what they've been doing recently, and well, apparently we've gone from first to last in most stats, and basically they're all the stats where you want to be doing good at. So stats like clearances, I think it was like contested possessions, goal kicking, goals conceded, defensive pressure, defensive effort. That's a really disappointing one because we've been really good at that all year. I think there was other ones like stoppage clearances and all that stuff. We've never really been that good at points from turnover. And then like goals per inside 50 has been horrible as well. Same with our set shots, and we've gone from first to last in all of them. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. Let's just say that. And Essendon were, well, I'll sum it up in Matthew Lloyd's case. They were dismal. They were disgraceful. They were shocking. They were fatigued. They just had the worst game that I've seen. Obviously, you got to excuse West Coast from anyone this season. That was just horrible stuff. Embarrassed the club, embarrassed everything, embarrassed their season and all their hard work. Yeah, both teams coming into shocking form. Yeah, probably won't be a good one for the neutrals. I reckon it'll be a really good game, but recent form hasn't said it'll be a good one at all. But I hope it's a really good game, and I still believe it'll be a really good game. I'm obviously going to tip Collingwood because I haven't tipped against us since round 1 this year. So Collingwood by 3 points in a thriller, one of the games of the season, and you will see why with my big call. Jamie Elliott kicks a goal after the siren to win the game, just to piss off all those Essendon fans for a bit of deja vu. Now, moving on to the final Saturday of the home and away season, we have North Melbourne versus Gold Coast down in Tassie. Now, North Melbourne have gone from 17th to last in the most shocking of circumstances. And yeah, they've had a pretty big week, North Melbourne. Harley Reid now probably predicted to come to the club, which is good. Jack Zeeble retired in his final game. It was absolutely devastating to hear what happened to him. Got like mauled at a nightclub or something. Anyway, I'm not going to speak about that any further. But yeah, they were pretty disappointing. Again, Nick Larkey was a shining light and another disappointing performance from North Melbourne. They got smashed around the midfield, particularly in that second half, and well, lucky really to score over 70 points thanks to Nick Larkey. And Gold Coast have had a massive week, the biggest of probably their history, with Dimmer announcing that he will be taking over the Gold Coast Suns from next season. Go and check out my Dimmer's. I guess it was Dimmer's success story and why I think Gold Coast would be good. Go check that out. It's up on the channel now. But yeah, I still think Gold Coast should be winning this game. They've had a pretty big week. They obviously didn't quite get the result they would have liked against Carlton, but that first quarter was fantastic. And, you know, they play really good up in the Gold Coast. But this one isn't up in the Gold Coast. It's down in Tassie, and they've never won at Tassie. So I think North Melbourne might tank this one, and Gold Coast will get the job done by 18 points. I'll go safe, and my big call, North Melbourne are actually in front at half-time. And then moving on to Hawthorn versus Fremantle at the MCG. This is a really exciting one. Which I guess for most people wouldn't be because both teams are, you know, bottom 4. But both teams have been pretty decent in their last month. Hawthorn have been obviously the better of the two, and they had another fairly good performance. And if it wasn't for injuries to Jai Newcombe and Mitch Lewis, I could have actually seen them winning that game against Melbourne. They were in it for 3 quarters, but then it was just a significant drop-off, and that's almost been the story of earlier in the season where Sam Mitchell said that they're having them massive drop-offs, and they even had that last year. Something they've got to work on, the Hawks. They just need better four-quarter performances. That's certainly, a full game, like a full four-quarter performance. They had 3 quarters. The fourth one wasn't quite there, though. And Freo, they were brave, they were gallant, they were good. They just weren't the better side in the end against Port Adelaide, and that's why they lost that game. There was a few of their star players that were a little bit down. Jackson, Brayshaw, young Emmett, I forgot his first name, but was really good on debut, and some of the younger players really stepped up. Sarong had his best game in clearances, so, you know, they were there. That, again, the same old story as their forward line. It's so inconsistent. Jai Amos had his worst game of the season. And yeah, Michael Walters was out injured, so yeah, they had some issues with their forward line for Freo in that one. The only one that was really good was Frederick. Schultz had a really good month before it, but now he's kind of lost that form, I guess. Maybe he's gone back into a bit of a slump, but I'm going to go Hawthorn in this one because it's at the MCG, basically. The only reason why, by 25 points, and my big call, the Hawks kick 4 last quarter goals. And moving on to the next game, which would have been good if it wasn't because of the Ben Keys, apparently hit the post decision. It would have been a really good one, but now it's not really so big. It's Brisbane versus St Kilda at the Gabba. Finding it interesting, these Gabba Twilight games, and this one certainly should be another interesting one. They obviously met earlier in the season, and I attended the game, and it wasn't the best game, that's for sure, and Brisbane got the job done, and I think that will be the same here. I don't expect two teams to be too good in this one. Brisbane were amazing on the weekend. Their forward line, obviously best in the comp, I think, now, so yeah, they were happy with the result, and a high-scoring shootout was always going to favour them. Their midfield at the moment is performing way better than ours, and yeah, they'll be really pleased with the result that they got. And St Kilda were, I guess, they were brave. I guess that's the word I would use to describe them. They started really well, and they ended really, really well. Their middle two to three quarters weren't great, but I still feel they were the better side, and eliminating Geelong from the finals, absolute scenes, just fantastic scenes. You got to jump on the Saints bandwagon now after that. Fantastic. Who doesn't love Geelong missing finals? Anyway, moving on, I do think Brisbane win this game though at the Gabba, and I do see them winning it pretty convincingly by 40 points. And my big call, St Kilda actually in front for longer in the first half. And moving on to a pretty big Saturday night game. It is Geelong versus the Western Bulldogs at GMHBA. And now because of the reason as it's at GMHBA, I'm probably going to go for the Cats in this one, especially seeming after the Dogs' performance on the weekend. They've just got to respond is the simple thing. Otherwise, I believe Bevo could even lose his job. The way he sat that press conference after the game, he had absolutely no interest. And you've got to really question him about him playing players in different positions. Like Caleb Daniels played absolutely everywhere this year. Bonampalli's carried them. Libba out injured. McRae's going to miss this week and was strangely subbed out of the game for a tactical reason. Their forward line's been pretty inconsistent. It's normally really good at Marvel, but boy, oh boy, that's the worst performance I've seen the Bulldogs have at Marvel. They still managed to score 85 points because, it's West Coast. But believe me, West Coast with a much better side. I do think they'll respond, but I'm still going to go the Cats in this one. They weren't great last week, the Cats. They've just got to bounce back and move on because, their forward line wasn't great. They do seem to have those games often, Geelong, where they have a couple of good ones in a month and a couple of bad ones, and I do think that was just a one-off bad performance. Obviously, they are missing finals, and that is due to their inconsistency away from GMHBA. They even have some inconsistency there, but not too often. I do think they'll win this game by 19 points. They do have a little bit of injury concerns, though, with Asava Radicalier out. I think Brad Close is out, so that's not exactly ideal and what you'd want. I do think they'll win this one, though, by 19 points. And my big call, Ollie Henry kicks 4 or more goals. Now, moving on to probably the most irrelevant game of the round in West Coast versus Adelaide, also on the Saturday night. Adelaide absolutely robbed of a top 8 finish this year in the worst possible way in front of their home fans. Ben Keys, boy oh boy, I can feel your frustration, mate. And as an Adelaide lover, yeah, that one stung, that's for sure. And I'm not even an Adelaide fan, so imagine how much it would have stung for the Adelaide fans. And yeah, good luck getting over that one. And West Coast, wow, what a performance it was from them. Huge upset. Even Adam Simpson said, boys, let's not get too comfortable. We might tank this one. He's speaking about maybe tanking it. And obviously they won the game, which is what you'd want. But maybe you got to question maybe whether it was wise to win. I don't know. Because it would have been good if they would have gotten Harley Reid, but now they obviously won't end up with Harley Reid, you would expect. I don't really expect them to be too good in this one. I can see Adelaide blowing them out and getting a nice response after that bloody goal umpire robbed them. And they'll win it by 54 points to 9 goals, and my big call, Isaac Rankine and Tex Walker combined for 10 or more goals. Now, moving on to the final Sunday. It's so sad of the round and of the home and away season. It's Port Adelaide versus Richmond at the Adelaide Oval. Now, I do think this one will be pretty similar to the one that happened earlier in the year or mid-year, where Port were just the better team at the G. I think something like that will happen. Port aren't in the best form at the moment. They do have a bit of injury concerns as well. Ryan Burton is out for this game, and they've still got a few players out, so I don't expect them to smash. And Richmond obviously got the farewell of Trent Cotchin and Jack Riewoldt on the weekend. Fantastic scenes there, and I'm sure they would have enjoyed their time at the Tigers. And pretty sad that it's all over now. Richmond fans were absolutely in tears after the game. And I guess it was a bit of an irrelevant game where footy didn't matter for a day, really. It was all about them and, of course, Jack Zeeble. I do think Port will win this one, and Richmond will get maybe focused a little bit more on their footy. And yeah, I reckon they'll win by 20 points. And my big call, Richmond are in front for longer in the game. And moving on is Sydney versus Melbourne on the Channel 7 Sunday Arvo footy. Now, this one is a pretty interesting one. Melbourne obviously have a lot to play for, sitting in fourth. Obviously would like to get the job done. They had a fairly good performance on the weekend against the Hawks. Hawthorn have been a pretty good team recently, and they started off pretty well. Melbourne had a slow start, and the weird thing about Melbourne is that they only need 5 minutes to beat you, really, and well, they can just put on a run of goals. And the fact that they actually scored 87 in that game still surprises me. And Jake Melksham could be the next Jamie Elliott, and it'll be interesting to see what he does throughout this final series. I don't really see Sydney winning this one, and they obviously didn't deserve to win last week. Even their coach, Horse, came out after the game and said, he was really unlucky for the Crows, and, he was feeling for them. And I do expect a decent performance for Sydney, obviously trying to do it for Buddy. He'll get a little bit of a farewell lap of honour. I do expect Melbourne to win this game, though, by 7 points. And my big call, the Dees are up by 30 or more points at any point in the match. Now, moving on to the final game of the round, and in my opinion, could be the game of the round. It is Carlton versus GWS at Marvel. Now, because it is at Marvel, it does make it a little bit more interesting. But the Giants were ridiculously good last week against the Bombers. And Carlton, wow, what a streak they're on. Their form is absolutely crazy. They had another really good performance. Charlie Curnow probably cemented himself as the best player in the comp after that performance with 5 goals, match-winning mark down in defence. They didn't really deserve to win, Carlton. They certainly weren't the better side for longer, but they were the better side in the bigger moments, and they have been for the last month or two now. So that's probably why they're going to be heading into the finals almost flag favourites, really. The Blues, in my opinion. Nick Newman's been huge. Their midfield hasn't been great. It's been inconsistent throughout the whole year, and it even hasn't been amazing in the last couple of weeks, but it's still doing the job, and they're still winning games, so you can't really complain, can you? And that forward line is just so dangerous. Harry Mackay back makes it even bigger for them. And with all their midfielders to come back, the likes of Kennedy, Chera and Walsh, they could be a real threat in the finals. The Blues and the Giants, they could also be a real threat. Jesse Hogan, career best 9 goals. They didn't need Toby Green. Their forward line was ridiculous. Their pressure, their ball movement. It was just a training drill, really, for the Giants. A dream performance by them. Scored their highest in their history. There was records broken that day for the Giants. And because of the crazy win, I can almost see them pinching this one. In fact, I will tip the Giants in a bit of an upset here by a solitary point. And my big call, there are 5 or more lead changes in the second half. So I hope you guys enjoyed the tipping video. The final predictions video. Now, I'm not sure if I'll be able to get my, all my finals predictions out because I'm going overseas and I won't really be reviewing Collingwood games. I won't even be watching the Collingwood games in the finals. I know, it's crazy stuff. But I'll be doing all that stuff when I come back from my holiday. I've still got like another week before I go, so hope you guys enjoyed the tipping video, and see you guys in the next one in the finals.